Good day, dear students. I'm again with you. Today, we are going to talk about United Nations Interpretation Service. I do hope you will get some useful information from today's lecture. When we speak about history and evaluation of interpretation and the early days of interpreting profession, we can say a lot. On the screen, you can see some parts of their life. United Nations has a direct connection with the evaluation of international diplomatic relations, League of Nations, as well as development of international process, and it played a very great role in the process of development of interpretation. As before, translators played a very important role during conferences. They spoke periodically after the speaker, and there was not consecutive simultaneous interpreters then. After time by time, they offered simultaneous interpreting in the meetings. Up to date, they have got many interpreters to work for United Nations organization and many opportunities for travel they offer. And as well as United Nations organization just deals with a lot of foreign languages because a lot of summits are held in it. Different kind of countries participate in these meetings, so a lot of language requirement we can see during their working process. As you know, they have got 6 main official languages such as English, French, Spanish, Russian, Arabic and Chinese Mandarin. And of course, they speak 6 languages to different kind of participants from different just countries. But when we speak about their qualification, they have got a special frame or demand or requirement for the interpreters. The interpreter must be completely proficient in the languages that they speak, with the ability to comprehend accents and regional language variation. Of course, they take into consideration cultural background, perspectives, and beliefs. Additional qualifications required during examination for interpreters working in United Nations organization. Let's talk about this. Especially, they require from the interpreters just to pass United Nations competitive examination for interpreters. They must also know a degree in interpretation with 1 year of study devoted solely to interpretation. And of course, in the beginning and the atypical day, as the beginning, they become very nervous. They become very nervous because they are new and it's difficult to understand, to capture the working process at the first time. Interpreter working for the United Nations organization will normally interpret for no more than 7 meetings per week. Meetings last around 3 hours. They will work in teams of 2 or in case of Arabic and other languages maybe in 3. And this time for the beginners can be tiring. They may be tired because the stress, they're nervous, and this kind of psychological effect of their work may cause some problems to their health. Working as an interpreter for human rights mission in the United Nations is somehow original. You may be asked to go to a mission in order to translate the team who just talks about human rights. In this very case, it is required from your special preparation, special skills. Rewards and challenges of working as an interpreter for the United States. There are many challenges of working as an interpreter for the United Nations. To begin with, the level of proficiency and accuracy needed to interpret for politically charged meetings can be particularly difficult. Working as an interpreter for the UN can lead you to many places all over the world, meeting people of all walks of life who need your interpretation skills in order to understand. UN Interpretation Service is a part of the Meetings and Publishing Division of the UN Department for General Assembly and Conference Management. Its core function is to provide interpretation from and into Arabic, Chinese, and other languages. When we speak about United Nations duty stations with interpretation or language service offices, we can say the following about them. They can be United Nations headquarters, United Nations office at Geneva, United Nations office at Vienna, UN office at Nairobi, Kenya, UN Economic Commission for Africa, and so on. UN Interpretation Service is composed of the following staff: Chief of Service, Administrative Staff, Chiefs of Sections, and Interpreters, permanents and freelancers. So these are the main components of translators. They are divided into the following sections such as Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish sections. As we spoke before, these are the main working languages of UN. When we speak about interpretation system sequence, speakers talks. Central control system distributes the signal to the audience. Audio consoles are placed to the interpretation booth. Interpreter talks, and this way the sounds and translation circulates between over the speakers and translators. How does interpretation work at the United Nations? Let's talk about this. Speakers at the UN are supposed to deliver their speeches in one of the organization's 6 official languages, and here the others just translate them into several languages, meaning the translators try to interpret them into several languages. If the speaker speaks Arabic language, the other translators translate them into several languages. If the speaker speaks in Russian, of course, they translate from Russian into several languages. And consecutive interpretation is very important nowadays in UN meetings. Interpreters don't need to know every official language. Rather, they hire interpreters who can translate into their native language from at least 2 or other languages. 120 interpreters, A, B, C. Looking at the screen, you may guess what I am going to talk just now. What I am going to talk about further. So, 120 interpreters are hired at the United Nations organization. Then we speak about A language, that is your native language. When we speak about B language, you learn the language being or living in a native language country. And when we speak about C level, that means you learn somewhere, not living in a native country. Here are some important things about UN interpreters. Let's talk about them, about UN interpreters. Interpreting is not the same as translating. They automatically translate the speech, oral speech, while translation is the act of written translation. Simultaneous interpretation technique became standard during Nuremberg Trials. At that time, a lot of people are just required as an interpreter, working as an interpreter in these trials, and several interpreters, in the several languages, just were required. And from this point, simultaneous interpreters began to develop. Interpreters work in pairs or teams of 3, switching off every half hour. The languages you see on the screen is very important. Mental agility is just required from the interpreters. They should be very smart and alert because it's difficult to capture the text, analyze and translate them automatically into English or into other languages and then transfer them in the target language. The interpreting is a globalized world. Interpreters need to be mentally agile. It means very smart and very automatically they should answer back. They should feel adrenaline. As you know, the tempo will be very high of the speech. There will be no time for thinking, and in this very process, the translators feel nervous, distressed, or they will be stressed. They should get into the flow. They should follow the atmosphere of the conference. They shouldn't just miss any kind of words. They have no right for missing any kind of idea. The range of interpretation subject is broad, including politics, legal affairs, economic and social issues, human rights, finance and administration. Providing interpretation at the meeting is very important and a very high skill. That was all for today about UN interpretation. Thank you very much for being with me. Thank you for your attention.